Hi class, in this video we're going to go over intervals, interval quality, and interval inversions. First we will look at how to find an interval based off a lower pitch. So here we have a D and we need to find a major third above it. So we first start by looking for a third above our D, remembering that the D is step number 1. So it's D, E, F. So a D to an F is a third. Now we need to check the quality, make sure it's a major third. The way we figure that out is by thinking of the lower note, in this case a D, as the tonic or as the key. Now the key of D major has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So here F natural, we need to sharp it. So D to F sharp is a major third. Let's look at this next one. We have an F and we need to find a major sixth above it. So first we go 6 steps up, F, G, A, B, C, and D. That's our sixth. Now we need to see if it is sharped or flatted. If F is our tonic, our key, we know that F has one key flat, B flat, D is natural, so F to a D is a major sixth. The next one, we have a perfect interval. Up to this point, we've just had major and perfect intervals. We have a perfect fifth, so we need to go 5 steps above our E flat. So E flat, F, G, A, B. Now we see what is the key signature for our lowest note here, E flat. Key of E flat has 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So this needs to be a flat. And just as a general tip, when dealing with perfect intervals, perfect fourths, fifths, unisons, and octaves, if the lowest note has an accidental, the upper note will have that same type of accidental, generally. So that's just something to keep in mind. So we'll see if that holds up here with this A. We need to find a perfect fourth above it. So go four steps, A, B, C, D. In the key of A major, we have 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. D is natural, so here, that little tip holds true in this case. So we have an A natural up to a D natural, it's perfect fourth. The last one here is a B flat. We need to go up a major second. So we go 2 steps, B flat, C. C is our pitch. We check our key signature. Key of B flat has 2 flats, B flat, E flat. C is natural, so B flat to a C is a major second. Now let's go the other way and look at an interval and try to say what it is. Here we have an E up to another E. That's 8 steps away, or an octave, and octaves are always perfect. So we call that for short a P8. Let's look at this next one. We have an F sharp up to a B. Let's see how many steps an F sharp to a B is. F sharp, G, A, B. So it's 4 steps away. Let's see if it's perfect. The way we figure that out is by looking at this bottom note. It's an F sharp. What is our key signature for F sharp, and is B sharp? Well, F sharp has 6 sharps. B is not one of them. So that means that that is a perfect fourth. So we can write that in. This next one, we have a G up to a B. How far is this G to a B? G, A, B, 3 steps away. Thinking of G, what is the key signature for a G major? 1 sharp, F sharp. So B is natural, so this is a major third, since that B natural is within a G major scale, or key. Next we have a D all the way up to a C sharp. If we were to count the steps, we would find 7 steps. So it's a seventh of some type. Now, thinking of this D as the key, how many sharps are in the key of D major? 2, F sharp, and C sharp. So this is a major seventh. And this last one, now we have a D flat up to a B flat, which is D flat, E, F, G, A, B flat. 6 steps away, so it is a sixth. And if we think about the key of D flat major, how many flats does that have? 5. Is B flat one of them? Yes. So that is a major sixth. All right, now let's talk about another quality that we've discussed in class, and that is a minor interval. And all that is a major interval down a half step. How we would make a major third, for example, a minor third, is just by lowering that top note a half step. So we take that B down to a B flat. If we wanted to make this major seventh a minor seventh, we would take this C sharp, lower it by a half step, which would make it a C natural. And if we wanted to make this major sixth a minor sixth, we would need to lower this B flat by a half step. And since it's already flat, we would need to double flat it. And that's how you make a minor interval out of a major. This does not apply to perfect. If you lower the perfect interval by half step, you do not make it minor. We'll talk about what you make it in just a moment. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about inversions. And review that if we take one of the pitches and make it that was on the bottom, make it the top, it changes the quality and the size. So if we have a perfect unison and we put 1 on the top, it becomes a perfect octave. If we have a second and we take the bottom C here and put it up on the top, it becomes a seventh. And you will also notice that the quality changes. So a major second inverted becomes a minor seventh. And if you look down the staff, you see that that is a pattern. If you have a major interval and then you invert it, it becomes a minor interval. All right? A major third inverted becomes a major or minor sixth. A major sixth inverted becomes a minor third. Major seventh inverted becomes a minor second. The only difference between, or the main difference between perfect and major intervals is that when we invert a perfect interval, we get another perfect interval. You invert a perfect fourth, you get a perfect fifth. So that's something to keep in mind. Whenever you invert a major interval, you get a minor interval. If you invert a minor interval, you get a major interval. But if you invert a perfect interval, you'll get another perfect interval. Now up to this point, we've just been talking about harmonic intervals. That are intervals that are stacked on top of each other, that would be played simultaneously. But there are also something called melodic intervals, where you have one note and then a next note played. You still have an interval relationship between these two, and we need to be able to figure those out. And actually, we figure those out the same way as we do with harmonic intervals. And what we do is say we have this G going down to this E. We look at the lower note of these two, which would be the E, and we think of that as the tonic, even though that might not be the key of the melody. We're in C major here, but just for figuring out this one interval, let's think of this as our tonic, E up to a G. Well, let's see. How many steps away is that? E, F, G. 3 steps, so it's some type of a third. Now let's think about what is our key signature for E major. E major has 4 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. All right, so, but we have a G natural. So if it was an E to a G sharp, that would be our major third. But we have a G natural, which is a half step lower than G. Well, what kind of interval quality is a half step lower than a major interval? It's a minor interval. So an E to a G natural would be a minor third. Again, it would be a major third if we had an E up to a G sharp, because that's what we would find in the key of E. All right, so the interval right here, E to G is a minor third. Let's go to the next one, E to D. Well, let's start with the lowest note, which is D, and pretend that D is our tonic. All right, so D up to E is 2 steps away, D, E, so it's a type of second. And let's think about the key signature for D major. It has F sharp and C sharp, but E natural. So this would be a major second. Next we have a D going down to a C. Think of the C as the bottom note, as the key, which it is actually in this melody, which is convenient. A C up to D is a second, and key of C major has no sharps or flats, so just C up to D would be a major second. So another major second. And then let's look at the C up to an E. How many steps is that? C, D, E, 3 steps. We can still think of this in the key of C. So there are no sharps or flats in the key of C, so a C up to a regular E natural is a major third. And then lastly, we have a G or an E up to an A. Now this time we need to think of the lower note, which is E, as the key signature. And first we need to figure out how far away they are. So E up to A, E, F, G, A, that's 4 steps. It's a type of fourth. If E is our pentatonic. E has 4 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. A is not sharp, so this would be a perfect fourth. So the same, how we figure out harmonic intervals is the same way as we figure out melodic intervals. Always look for the lowest note of the two that we're dealing with. Sometimes that might be the first note in the pair, like right here, E to the, up to the A, or it could be the second, like this D to the C. So it doesn't matter which order they come in the melody, it just matters which one is lower. Let's talk about one more thing, and we're going to talk about augmented and diminished intervals. Now what happens if you have an interval that's a half step larger than a major or a perfect interval? Well, we call that an augmented interval. And how we show that is with a little plus sign. Augmented you can think of as getting bigger. You augment something, it gets wider. What you're doing when you augment an interval is making it larger. So if we were to take this sharp off, just for now, E to an A, think of E, actually we just figured that out, is a perfect fourth, if we remember from our melodic interval. Perfect fourth. But if we put a sharp on here, that makes it a half step bigger than a perfect fourth. And so if we have a perfect interval and make it one step larger, it becomes augmented. And the same is true if we have a major interval. So let me write a C sharp here. An A up to a C sharp. What is that interval? Let's see, A, B, C, it's a third. A to C sharp, that is a major third because the C sharp is in the key of A. But what if I do this? I make it a double sharp, so raise it up another half step, then that becomes an augmented third, so a +3. So that's how you show it. You just write a plus and then the number. We can augment perfect intervals and major intervals. We can't augment minor intervals because when we make a minor interval bigger by a half step, we just get a major interval. So major intervals can be augmented and perfect intervals can be augmented. Let's look at one other thing here, and this is diminished. Just as augmented makes things larger, diminished makes things smaller. And so if we're dealing with here an F to an A flat, this is a minor third. How do I know that? Because it's 3 steps away, F to A, and an F to an A natural would be a major third if we think of the key of F major. So an E flat is lowering that A by half step, making it a minor third. But what if we have an A double flat, lowering it by another third? That would be a diminished third. And we write that by a little 0 with a 3 or whatever number it is. We can also have we have perfect intervals diminished as well. So if we have a G up to a D, that is a perfect fifth. Think of the key of G has 1 sharp, so D natural is a perfect fifth. If we lower that, that's my dog barking, by a half step by writing a flat, then that becomes a diminished. Perfect intervals do not become minor intervals if you make them smaller. They become diminished. And that's a really important thing to remember. And in fact, the handout that I attached to the email that has this link has a nice little diagram of how to remember what happens when we raise or lower perfect intervals or raise or lower major or minor intervals along with inversions to hopefully help you as you go along with that. All right, hopefully this helps with the homework and all those things for class, and I'll see you back in class.